The thunder of catapults, the roar of jet engines, and the world's most advanced aircraft carrier now steaming toward Venezuela. The stakes have never been higher. For decades, the Southern Caribbean has simmered quietly, a zone of counter-narcotics patrols, humanitarian drills, and coalition exercises. But by mid-1925, the simmering turned hot. The USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, the U.S. Navy's newest, largest, and most advanced carrier, was ordered to reposition from Europe toward Latin America. Simultaneously, the U.S. had carried out at least 10 lethal strikes on vessels it claimed were trafficking drugs from Venezuela since September. 43 victims, according to public data. In Caracas, Nicolás Maduro sounded alarms. Mobilize the militia. Prepare defenses. This is no mere patrol. Now, what was once a maritime interdiction mission has morphed into a full-scale naval posture, carrier strike group included, aimed at what Washington calls transnational criminal organizations, while Caracas sees it as potential regime change. And here's where the tension turns cinematic. The hunt for the narco tanks has become the hunt for a nation. The carrier can host 75-plus aircraft, features an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS, dual nuclear reactors, and advanced weapons elevators, each a technological leap over the previous class. In Washington, senior leaders brief on the mission, intercept narco traffickers, support partner nations, deter adversarial regimes. The instruction: display presence, be ready for escalation. Meanwhile, intelligence teams map the route: the Strait of Gibraltar, Atlantic crossing, Caribbean approach. They flag 4 likely hotspots off the Venezuelan coast, where the Ford's air wing will have the most reach. On day 1, US B-1 bombers fly near Venezuelan airspace, signaling a shift from surface ships to deep strike capability. Simultaneously, Allied destroyers and a fast attack submarine deepen the perimeter. Tomahawk armed launches hidden beneath the waves, ready to strike land targets if given the order. In Venezuela, radar screens pick up increased transmission from coalition aircraft. Caracas responds by mobilizing militia reserves, air defense batteries, and coastal patrols. A message: we are ready. By day 3, the deployment has become unmistakably strategic. The Ford's air wing is cleared to cross 300 nautical miles from the coast. Strike options are drawn up for both maritime and littoral targets. In Congress, lawmakers demand clarity. Are we at war? Some express concern over rules of engagement and the legal framework for strikes. On the water, U.S. warships intercept several speedboats linked to alleged trafficking. Explosive ordnance disables one vessel, 11 casualties are reported. The merciless message: the rules have changed. Caracas issues its own warning: mobilize the Bolivian militia, call up reservists, declare maximum preparedness. Any attack will be met with full force. By the end of week 1, the Ford strike group has taken position off the Venezuelan coast. The carrier is joined by multiple destroyers and a submarine, Aegis fire control, Tomahawk land attack missiles, integrated maritime surveillance, the works. On deck, FA-18E/F Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers, conducting electronic attack rehearsals, drones feeding real-time data to the carrier's command, ready to cross the beach if needed. Tactically, U.S. strategy is 3-tiered. Interdict maritime trafficking routes with surface combatants and subs, dominate the air and EW, electronic warfare spectrum from the carrier. Prepare for littoral strikes or amphibious landings. The amphibious ready group stands by. In Caracas, Russian-supplied S-300 surface-to-air systems are positioned along the coast. Anti-ship missiles scrambled, civilian alert issued. As week 2 dawns, Latin American neighbors begin shifting. Caribbean states are asked for basing support. The U.S. sends reconnaissance assets to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands to secure logistics. Venezuela, backed by allies, begins joint drills with civilians and militia units. The rhetoric escalates from defense to active resistance. Calls for Bolivian defense of the homeland dominate state media. The strategic consequence: this is no longer just disruption of narco networks, it is contestation of influence in the hemisphere. Washington's message, the Western Hemisphere, is not up for grabs. Caracas sees it differently. A challenge to sovereignty, a pathway to regime change. The carrier in the Caribbean becomes psychological warfare as much as naval. After 1 month, the operational picture crystallizes. The Ford's air wing has crossed hundreds of missions. Drones track hundreds of suspect vessels. The presence alone forces Venezuela to divert resources to coastal defense, militia activation, and anti-air assets. U.S. expenditure. The carrier strike group costs millions per day to operate. Each FA-18 sortie burns tens of thousands of dollars. But the strategic return: pressure, dominance, visibility. In contrast, Venezuela's economy falters under the added military burden. Its oil revenues shrink with instability. The militia strains resources. Tactically, U.S. naval doctrine now emphasizes sea control, air dominance, amphibious readiness. Venezuela must face a maritime air amphibious juggernaut. Strategically, the U.S. message to allies in the region and adversaries beyond is clear. When our maritime lifeline is threatened, we respond, and we deploy our top assets to defend the hemisphere. By the 3rd month, the question looms: will this escalated posture trigger a land invasion? Will U.S. forces conduct strikes inside Venezuelan territory? Or will the show of force suffice to force Caracas to negotiate? Supporters argue that the U.S. has effectively raised the cost for any adversarial maritime air corridor. Critics caution about surprise escalation, civilian casualties, international law, and the possibility of miscalculation. Venezuela remains mobilized, militia on standby, coastal defenses primed. Russia and China watch from the sidelines, evaluating how the U.S. leverages its carrier strike capability in the Western Hemisphere. The military consequence: if hostility breaks out, the carrier becomes hub for strike operations, but also primary target. The Venezuela and allied adversaries could attempt anti-ship cruise missile strikes, A2/AD schemes, anti-access Hornet denial, or asymmetric attacks in littoral waters. The ripple effect: increased risk of escalation beyond the Caribbean. So here's the moment of truth. Will the USS Gerald R. Ford's deployment force Caracas to the negotiating table? Or will we be watching the first U.S. carrier-based strike inside Venezuela in decades? What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe for daily videos of today's military news from around the world.